Hello, Chris.
Talking to Steve Wolfley at the start of the week, and he was talking about juggling the dates of bringing back his England players. I know when we spoke after the match against Northampton, you said there's a chance of a couple coming back now. How have you worked that out with them individually, and who do you expect to be available for Bath?
Player first, totally on them. I didn't even call them up until they called me, as much as I wanted to see where they're at after the summer tour. I just let them have as much time as they wanted, well, the 5 weeks. And then thereafter, in terms of playing time, I just let them come to me. And both of them said they felt like they wanted to come back earlier than the mandatory 10-week layoff or the suggested 10-week layoff. As well, all three of them did. As in each individual case, there was an argument for them not playing as much as other players in the Premiership. So it was first off player, and then we looked to take the player out of it, completely out of it, and look at the physical demands on them over the course of the season, the minutes in particular, the number of starts they had. There were also obviously, they went through the ringer in terms of our physios and the testing and everything else to make sure the physical markers were up there, and that they were robust enough to potentially come back early. And obviously, we have psychometric testing, I guess you can call it. We have people who aren't in the management structure here who converse with the players on a regular basis to determine whether or not mentally they're saying it that for the right reasons, not just because they want to please me or through peer pressure. So we go for quite a rigorous process there. Then we communicate with the RFU, who go through the similar process with their physios, with their S&C team, and I have a chat to Eddie. And once all that's put in place, all of that information from 6 different groups of experts, I guess you could say, gets put onto the RPA, and then the RPA ring them up to check that all of it's correct, and then they get given the big tick or not. So it's quite a rigorous process, player-centred, and it starts with the players' want and desire to come back early, first and foremost, Chris.
So Tom and Johnny will be up for Bath.
Correct.
Johnny's injury, did that make it easier to convince everybody he should play because he missed so much?
Well, yeah, because it's part and parcel of that package in terms of his game loading over the course of the year, yeah.
And Tom, in terms of concussion, have you spoken to him about that? Are you concerned about this going forward? Do you think it's just one-off, or it's obviously a massive topic?
Yeah, it wasn't a one-off. That's why he had a 12-week layoff by the neuroscientists. But the guys that look at brains are happy enough. That's a long enough time period for his noggin to recover and for him to be, as fresh and as ready as he was before he started getting concussions in the Six Nations. So we haven't talked about it because it's no longer an issue.
Excellent. And carrying forward from the game, do you pick up any problems, any injuries out of that one that will affect Bath?
Just Cooney, who stays in with his own concussion. So the parameters have changed. If you get concussed, if it's a clear knockout now and you're out for the count, for want of a better description, it's a 12-day layoff, not a 7-day mandatory layoff. So he's got 12 days off.
Excellent. Thanks, mate.
Cheers, Chris.
Mind if I jump in, Alex?
Yeah, go for it, Charlie.
How are you, first of all?
I'm really good. I'm very well. Second week in.
Yeah.
In
terms of looking back at last week's game, 65 minutes, probably very good in particular, that kind of first 20 or so minutes of the second half, and then final 15 minutes, not so great. What do you put that down to? Is it fatigue? Is it just Northampton clicking into gear and they're a dangerous side so they can put you under pressure like that? And as a coach, weirdly, is it one of those where you don't want the players to get carried away, you want to keep them grounded, so actually having something that you can look at Monday morning and say, right, that this was a part of the game that we didn't do so well and we need to improve on that, is that kind of, in a weird way, not a good thing, but something that actually keeps the players motivated to keep working hard, that they're not thinking, goodness me, we've cracked the code, we've done it.
You'd be in a good place, wouldn't you, if you cracked it week one? Going back to your original question, I think we were excellent for 30 minutes, and that's the 10 minutes before half time to the 20 minutes after. Thereafter, we lost the set piece dominance that we had. So we were winning penalties in the scrums, and we're using that as a means to add pressure and to gain territory. That went for various reasons of the dark arts, which I'll not get into. We didn't manage the game as well as what we did in the first 60. So there was some long passages of play, like long passages. All the long passages ended up being in that last 20 minutes, where there was some big high kick sprint meters put in, some defensive sets, and then we end up turning the ball over, and rather than doing the right thing in context to the game, 29-3 up, in context to the time and energy levels, you end up running again, and you just feed a team, like you say, like Northampton, who were brilliant on transition and turnover when you're tired. So they're the big three things there: game management, set piece, and our ability or our inability to put the ball in the right areas during that last 20 minutes that just let them back in. So quite obvious fixes for us, obvious fixes for the lads. It gives us, like you say, something to focus on in terms of closing games out. But if we're honest, we weren't overly impressed with our work rate throughout the game. We think we can work harder than what we did in certain aspects in terms of, working earlier to get into position, both sides of the ball. If we did that better, then the result might have blown out a bit more.
The attack functions pretty well. 4 tries in the game and 4 tries inside the opening hour. Has that been a very obvious area that you've been working on over the summer, that Paul Deacon has been really working hard on, about stretching? It seems noticeable stretching the game further out wide rather than focusing down the middle. How much of an influence perhaps is George Ford, even though he's not playing yet, how much is that an influence that he has perhaps had on trying to think about varying your attack, moving it into wider areas?
Yeah, he's been a massive influence on that. The back's taking it on a bit more and taking some of the pressure off the forwards to get the forwards on the front foot. It just so happened that the space was there in this game for it to be a little bit wider, a little bit further from the ruck. In other games, it might be where the space is a bit closer. It's about identifying and using the ball, getting it into that right space and keeping it in front of the forwards, really, in simple terms. We have focused hard on it because it's the one area, at least the conversion rate, in that 25 metres out from opposition line, that area we've worked hard on in terms of our execution, because it was one of the biggest, most significant stats in our win-loss ratio. So it's been a focus. But I guess what we've done is have just a more specific focus in our attack. We've still given other areas of our game, our DNA, the same attention that we have in the past.
Manu got through 55 minutes.
Yeah.
Are you, fingers crossed, nothing as a result from that game has been brought up? Is the fact that there's a bye week after this week, does that kind of make your decision in some ways to select him this week a little bit easier, knowing that he's going to have that rest week in a week so he can kind of go full throttle into Bath this weekend? Yeah,
easier, yeah. And we'll take it week by week with Manu. So looking at his loading, see how he's feeling. And I think by Manu standards, he knows there's more in him. So it's a case that he wants to get back on track and get back on the field and get his game to the level that he can play at.
And how close is Rafi to return? I know you said that he had a few little setbacks in his recovery, so it was a few weeks behind. Where's he up to?
Maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. Yeah, probably post this Premiership Cup period. Around that time, yeah. Cheers. Thanks, Kieran.
Hi, Alex. Charles here from Telegraph. Just a couple for you.
Hello, Charles.
It seemed you've spoken already about sort of game management and stuff. It seemed I think only Leicester and Exeter kicked the ball more than you guys last weekend. It's quite a hot topic at the minute, and obviously Leicester and France last season had great success, and no teams kicked the ball more than them. Have you looked at sort of refocusing in attack there? Is that somewhere that you've looked to exploit more? I know that other teams have said on record that they have looked at their kick strategy more and potentially kicking more, basically. And is that something that you've looked at ahead of this new season with the way that the game's going?
We've looked at how we use the ball, but everyone does. Look, you go back to the stats, and the teams that kicked the most won the most. The top 4 teams, the ones were higher up that Opta stats table of how much they kicked compared to how much they ran. So I think everyone's probably going to lean into that stat as a means to shape what they do with the ball. But first and foremost, you have to be in a position to go, to run, to attack when it is on. And if you look back at the weekend, we played out of our 22 twice as well. We didn't just kick just because it's part of the strategy. We kicked when it was the right thing to do. It's funny, isn't it, how you're asking you kick the most and Kieran's saying you played the most expensive rugby. It's like, which one is it? I think you can do both, honestly, provided your decision making is on point, and that's where George Ford has been exceptional in terms of his input since he's been back. He's helped us massively with that game management area.
And just on that theme, I'm interested in your thoughts more philosophically. You said it there. The top teams that kick the most, they win at the minute. Do you think that that's a sort of good avenue for the game at the minute? Do you think that's a good? Do you think that's a sort of the spirit of rugby, as it were, that the teams that kick the most? Do you think that's a good way that rugby's going to grow as a sport? I'm not sort of putting this on sale in any way or necessarily the league. I'm just wondered your thoughts on the state of rugby and the team that kicks the most wins.
It's funny. Well, yeah, if you take the broad stat and what it implies, it's probably not an overly positive suggestion that you have to kick to win. But I'll pose the question back at you. Do we believe that Northampton Saints are a good attacking team, given that they scored the most tries in the Prem last year, made the most metres? Like they are, aren't they? They kicked the most in attack, did the most attacking kicks. So what it does, if you attack a lot, it brings people up, so you put the ball through. And if they stay back, you're able to attack. You have to have the kicking threat as part of your armoury to manipulate defences. And I'm sure the needle will swing the other way at some point, because everyone will be kicking and everyone will leave teams back, and then it's on to run, as it was for us at the weekend. So you have to look at how teams kick to create unstructured scenarios for them to attack of broken field situations. We're not just talking about kicking the lever off it or kick and clapping. We're talking about kick to contest, kick to win back, kick to space, kick to score. And then kicking as a whole new, takes on a whole new vibe, really, doesn't it? It's not just the boring old Gary Owens. It's like you're kicking to a means and an end, which is to get the ball back in a better position against disorientated defences.
Just finally from me then, Tom Roebuck, how impressed were you with him at the weekend? What's his ceiling?
Like a lot of our young lads who kind of broke through last year, this is now his second season in, isn't it? Like this is the season. If he got a taste of it, now he's a little more established and feels it's worth a little bit more. So I think you're going to see more from him of those. Like he wasn't impressed with his game. Like he couldn't get it. Like, yeah. So I'm like, I asked him in the corridor today, so how are you going to stay grounded? And he's laughing. And he's like, I'm not that impressed, mate. And he reeled off 4 or 5 things that he did wrong, which is ace, innit? And that's shows the humility of the man and as well as the guys around him. But yeah, no, he can he's still young. He's got all the basics that you need as a winger. He's finishing well. He's climbing in the air really well, and his defensive attributes were on point as well. He made a turnover tackle 5 minutes from the line, so you saw all that there. Is brilliance, I guess. There's still got to be more in him, haven't they? At, what is he, 22 years old?
Yeah, and that's all from me. Right, thank you.
Cheers, Charles. Thanks, mate.
Alex in the Mirror. Afternoon.
Hello, Alex.
Can I ask you one question about Bath?
Yeah, go on.
Did you see anything in their performance at Bristol which suggests they're going to be a tougher nut to crack this season than they were last season?
Loads about the performance that showed the mentality, the muscle, and also the tightening of their tactics brought over from a Munster style-esque coaching setup under Johan van Gran. He's brought in things that make teams hard to beat, and that is like a stronger set piece, a more clearly defined kicking game with an intent at the breakdown, which makes it difficult at best to get quick ball. So if you have those things in place, and they weren't really tested with the defence, but if those things in place, then it's always going to be a closer game than it was if you're playing like kind of free-flowing or whatever it is, entertaining rugby, which is what they put out to perform last year.
As far as you're concerned, you made a winning start. How important is momentum at this stage of the season? Last season you got off to although you won your first game, you blew quite a big lead at London Irish, didn't you? And then you kind of struggled to get your momentum back a little bit. Is it important that you follow a win with a win before your week off?
Well, I think it's just important to win, isn't it? Like, it's just important to win at the start of the season. We learned that last season. It's the one thing that we were most grateful for after the game, because I've been in places where you're winning and it's never good enough. It can always be better, and that's like your coaches, that's everyone says, oh yeah, there's those things to work on. There is things to work on, but celebrate the win, appreciate how hard we've worked, and that we probably deserved of that win, we feel, with how hard we've worked and the time we've put in. And then, do all your backslapping on the Monday and get back to it on the Tuesday, which is what we've done, because it doesn't stop, does it? So we feel in the form we're in, going down to Bath, and they're going to have their backs against the wall, having lost last week, first home game, new management structure in, some new players to come and bolster the pack up. We feel that it's going to be another really tasty, exciting contest. But one, if we get it right and we make those improvements I've talked about in terms of our effort, one that we could come away victorious. You have to back yourself in that sense. Momentum's always important. It's always important. But just winning and getting your belief for your squad at the start of the seasons, I guess it goes hand in hand, doesn't it, Al? It's the same thing.
Thanks, Alex.
Cheers, mate.
Alex, how you doing?
Hi, Liam. Good, mate. Have you had your hair cut? You look like you've had a trim.
I look what?
You look like you've had a trim since last Wednesday.
No, I haven't. No.
You just combed it.
Closer to the screen.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I saw you tweeting, didn't I?
Fair enough. Just a quick one there. You've mentioned George Ford a number of times in earlier on in answers to questions there. I'm just wondering, like when Owen Farrell was out injured with Sanderson's there for a lot of last year, he had Mark McCall out in the coaching side and was seen knocking around the coach's spots for a match and everything and stuff like that. Has George Ford expressed anything like that he is interested in the coaching side and might help you out on that front in any way?
Yeah, no, he does. The best players do anyway, vicariously. I don't think he'd go in the coaching box to that degree, but we do look for feedback from him on sessions, post games. There's a little group that I've been meeting with just to get their purely subjective observations on the game, aside, from the lads who have been involved in it and and everything else. It's just somebody else's point of view. So he has influence on a lot of what we do.
Okay, you don't know long term, is coaching something you want to get into?
Yeah.
His brother and his dad, yeah.
Yeah, he'd be a great coach. He'd be a brilliant coach. Both his brothers coach, his dad coach. So I assume he's going to be another one who doesn't fall far from the from the Ford tree.
Okay, so I'm just wondering what might he have said, a hot take from the game last Sunday. I haven't watched it there, watched Delta for the first time in the prep.
Pretty much stuff like, I don't keep much back from you boys. That's probably one of my faults. Along similar lines of what I've said in and around the last 20 minutes. And how excited we are that if we get a few things right, we can be quite a lot better.
All right, okay. And just changing tack there, Josh was back in the lineup, come off the bench at the weekend. It's fabulous to see him back. Can you just put into context how much of a personal achievement it was for him to get back, given it's been a horrendous few years from with injury?
We mentioned it in the on the field in the huddle afterwards, and he got like a big cheer from the boys. There was more elation from him coming back than perhaps, as I said before, than the result. He's so highly regarded, well respected, and much loved in this environment that it wasn't just a win for Josh, it was a win for us all. I don't know many people that could, after 2 years out, have the drive or face the possibility, the high possibility that he could get injured again, because he's kind of got loose ligaments, apparently, Josh, to come back and to want to give it that kind of a go. And how good was he? Like, he was brilliant. I thought how he managed the line out, his running lines. He didn't look like he'd been away at all, let alone 2 years. So he's just gone up again in my estimations, and he was pretty high as it was.
Yeah, okay. Like, I mean, he's the sort of trauma he's gone through. It's a fantastic example for other players to cope with adversity in this game and to get on with it. You know, you can get back from the sort of stuff.
I think injury, unfortunately, and we're not the most dangerous sport. I've been told there's more dangerous sports out there, which I'm not really allowed to divulge because some sporting bodies will come after me or something. But injury is kind of an inevitability in contact sport, any contact sport, and so rugby. So it's how you persevere through injury, through adversity, which injury is. Not only grows you as a person, but it kind of shows the mark of you, doesn't it, Liam? It shows the bones of you. He's a great example because the injury, lightning striking twice, unless it's a chronic injury, at some point your bad luck's going to end. It's got to end, and you see this in many other people's careers, and this has happened with Josh in his career. Unfortunately for him, it's not come at the end of his career. He's still got a year, maybe 2 years, maybe 3 to have the best years of his career. And that's down to his own perseverance, Liam, exactly as you've said. So for anyone else who's injured, what's that song by Journey, Don't Stop Believing? It's a great tune, isn't it?
Fair enough. Well done, Tim. Just finally, for me, you spoke to Alex there about the improvements Bath had made, just what you noticed from their round one game. I'm just wondering that the other round one games, did anything stand out for you in what teams were trying to do over the week that was different from what way they played last season?
Excuse me. Didn't watch too much. I've got Leicester and Exeter on my computer now. Obviously, we've got Exeter next up, so I didn't watch much of the rest of the comp. Unfortunately, I couldn't give too much comment.
Okay, fair enough, Alex.
Cheers, Liam. Thanks, mate.